Hello, time to shine here. I really have been really aching to do this update of the review of Florence Ballard, the Dreamgirl. I've done a previous review on my video probably last year, and this is an update. I really want to have, return with better audio and with my microphone. So basically this book is about Florence Ballard, and for those who are not familiar with who Florence Ballard is, she is one of the founding members of the Supremes. She was born on the 30th of June 1943, and unfortunately she died at a young age at 32 years old. And she was born as I say, in Detroit, Michigan, and she is the ninth child of 13. So she came from a large, warm, musical family. Music was something that Florence was very familiar with, and she was introduced to music into singing by her father. And at the time, her high school, which was in Detroit, had a music program. She met her friend Mary in high school, and they went on to form a group called the Primates. And they found another girl, Diana Ross, and she was, brought into the group. Now let's get into the book. Florence, the book starts off with Florence speaking about her early life. And that, to me, what I liked about the book is that it is based on some interviews that Florence conducted with the author Benjaminson. So she states here that she started singing at 5 years old in churches at home. And what you have to understand is that Florence was raised in a large, loving family. She had 12 brothers and sisters, and she was the ninth. And it really goes on to say how poor she was, because I think her family were from the South, and they moved up to Detroit to work in the car showrooms of Detroit. It also states here that really singing was Florence's life, and it was something that she really had a great passion for. So that's the first chapter. So I just want to say that I was quite impressed with the start of the book, because the start of the book was filled with a lot of useful information that I didn't know. It talks about the racism that was quite rampant at the time. So the first chapter is called Detroit is Where It's At. So I'm going to read you a snippet of just a part of the first part. During the 1950s, the Ballards moved to the Brewster Projects, a gleaming new public housing project that was a fine place to live at the time. Flo recalled that the family's bright and shiny two-story row house, complete with 4 bedrooms, varnished floors, a basement, and a modern kitchen. But she didn't remember the Brewster Projects just because it was the best place she had ever lived. It was there she met Mary Wilson and Diana Ross. And it was there that her public life began. Like Flo, young Mary loved to sing. They both sang in church choirs and once performed at the same school talent show. After congratulating each other, the two girls started walking to school together. They attended the same elementary and junior high schools and would go on to different high schools. Mary to Northeastern and Flo to Northwestern. Mary was a skinny, homely little girl, I guess. I must have been too, Flo said in truth. Earlier in her life, Flo had indeed been a skinny, homely little girl. But soon after she and Mary became friends, in 1958, Florence began to grow up. she became a tall woman with long legs and auburn hair. She also had a big bust, large and sensuous lips, and an attractively pointed chin. So that's just part of the first part. It's called Detroit, I Know Where It's At. So let's move on to the next chapter of the book. Yeah, before I move on to the next chapter, I want to highlight a very, very pivotal moment in Florence's life. In 1960, Florence was sexually assaulted by a supposed friend who gave her a lift from a high school dance. And this was a turning point in Florence's life, because it really did have a huge effect on her personality. And she would never ever recover from this sexual assault that occurred. And she even stopped singing at one point. This really caused her to stop her love. And as you know, she has a huge love of singing, and this really affected her attitude to singing and to life in general. And I really liked how the author Peter Benjaminson wrote this part, because it also she was sexually assaulted at knife point. So not just assaulted, but threatened with a knife. So the terror in a young girl, and Florence had no sexual experience at the time. So this really is devastating thing to happen to a young lady. But anyway, let's move on to the next chapter. So this is a snippet from the next part. It's called Always a Bridesmaid. The Primates spent their first year at Motown vocalizing and hand clapping ominously behind big name stars. By 1960, though, Gordy could no longer use the excuse they were still in school to turn aside their pleas to make their own records, since, according to his criteria, they had all finished high school. They spent months recording songs that Gordy usually ruled were not worth releasing. Among them was After All, a tune produced by Smokey Robinson and recorded by the Primates on October the 1st, 1960. So the next chapter is called Boom Boom Baby Baby. And Boom Boom Baby Baby goes into their first hit. The first hit that they had was Where Did I Love Go? And that really launched the Supremes on the road to stardom. And that is really why I'm doing this review and why Florence is known. So let's get into that. The song was originally written by Holland Dozier. He was one of the keys behind the Motown sound. Of course, Berry Gordy had an input in the song also.